holiday break is upon us, and that means it's time to catch up on all the books and movies we've been meaning to read and watch. Listen to this episode to hear what we recommend for your holiday break and learn about some of our favorite books and movies. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of the Cleveland Real Estate Investor Podcast.
Hi, everybody, and happy holidays. With me once again is Chief Elf Mike Ferrante, who, by the way, is off to Israel for a vacation. Mike, how you doing this morning?
Fantastic. That's a new title for me, Chief Elf. I like it.
Well, you're not going to be seeing a white Christmas. You're out of here, right? You're going to be in Israel.
Yeah. I'm going to be at the center of it all. I'm going to be at the heart of basically three religions. I'll be near Jerusalem, Bethlehem. I'll be staying in Tel Aviv. Yeah, it's going to be pretty amazing.
Well, fans of this podcast, I have been trying to coax Mike into doing a quick podcast from Bethlehem, which saw a surge in property prices when word got out that Jesus himself had been born there, right, Mike?
That's right. Yeah.
That's one crass commercial way we can describe Bethlehem, but in keeping with the Cleveland real estate investor. But today's topic is going to be books and videos to watch on this holiday break. But before we do it, I want Mike, you to tell us about this class that you teach, because you're under the gun. We got to do a quick podcast, and then you're going to be hosting this webinar at 11 a.m. So we've got a half hour for this podcast. Go ahead, tell our fans out there what you're doing.
So real quick, I'm a big believer in networking. I mean, frankly, that's how I met you, Mike. It was through BNI. Your daughter, Lindsay, was in a BNI chapter. Those of you who don't know what BNI is, it's Business Networking International. And, not everyone is great at cold calling. Not everyone is a salesy type person that can go out and do that. So I'm in a coaching platform with Tom Ferry, one of the top coaches in the world for real estate. And what I've done is I've put together a mastermind group. I've got about 30 or so agents, and we're growing that group, one agent per area. And what we do is once a month get together on a Zoom. We get to know each other a little better. It's a structured meeting, much like BNI. We keep it short. And the cool thing about it is that now we have a trusted referral network. And frankly, I've already closed one deal as a result of the group. So it's a great way to grow a business, especially if you're not an outgoing salesy type person.
Well, when you say not everybody is cut out, to make cold calls and stuff like that, I've been getting bombarded, as you know, from people, realtors calling me about this house that we bought, thinking that I was the owner trying to sell it. Remember I talked to you about that a couple of days ago?
Exactly.
I mean, every day it's like two calls. And, you know what? I'll just blast these people calling. I said, why are you calling me? And not... I'm not trying to get on their shit, but, it's stupid. It's stupid. They're buying this list. Does anybody stop and think whether they're actually spending 30 hours of misery making phone calls over the course of a couple of months? And how many jobs did they get? As opposed to doing it smart, like what you're doing, and networking. Your comments?
Yeah, I mean, I don't tell agents not to cold call. I don't love it, but if you're good at it and if you have good data, it can be productive. But most of the agents that I deal with hate it. And if you hate to do something, I mean, Mike, you and I both know if you hate doing something, you're not going to do a good job at it. So, certainly there are agents, and it's funny, Mike, you talk about the dozens and dozens of phone calls that you're getting. Well, guess what? There's about 6,000 agents in Northeast Ohio. So the percentage of them who are actually taking the time to call you and other people, it's very, very small.
Yeah, but let me counterpoint here, Mike. If I'm you, I would tell my people, don't cold call, especially now. in this era, because it is so invasive calling somebody on their cell phone. I mean, it's one thing to call them on their landline, and it'll go to voicemail or something. Yeah. But it's another thing when you're texting, when you're calling. I mean, all it is negative advertising for your company. And I'm Mike Ferrante. I work for Mike Ferrante. I'm calling you about that house, and wondering, blah, 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 blah. Can you imagine somebody getting that after getting 20 phone calls? They're making a mental note. I will never use Mike Ferrante, ever. In fact, certainly if his name comes up at a party on a realtor, I would say, don't call that person. I got a call from them at 8 a.m. on a Monday asking me about this house. Okay, so I want you to think about that and maybe share that with your guru, your sales mentor coach, and say, you know what, folks, just had this podcast. I'm throwing this out there. Do not text or make phone calls. Your thoughts?
I can't argue with it, Mike. I don't do it anymore personally. The agents who tend to do it are the ones who don't have a good sphere of influence, who don't have a network set up. So I think it's a crutch, especially for newer agents, to try to build a business when they don't have one. But I have the same thing. I don't like the experience of receiving those calls, and I'm proud to say that I don't do it now in my business. So I'm with you. We're never going to convince every agent out there not to make cold calls, though.
Let's make lemonade out of lemons here. Okay, if I'm the owner of Century 21, if I'm the CEO, you know what I'm going to pass a directive out? In fact, I'll run ads. I'll run ads on TV saying, we do not cold call. We do not text. Right away, operating Century 21. In fact, hi, I'm Mike Reilly, CEO of Century 21 nationally. And if you're like me, if you're like me, or as I've heard my friends and clients say, that I'm sick and tired of getting all these texts and getting bombed with texts, I have told all my agents, do not do this. Do not cold text. Do not buy this list. In fact, if you do, we find out you're doing it, you'll be fired.
Wow. That's powerful. I mean, it certainly captures a certain audience, that no doubt. And they always say, find your tribe, find the people that are like you to do business with. And I think it would certainly attract a certain group of people who would appreciate that.
Yeah. And think about that great scene. I don't know if you saw the movie, Miracle on 34th Street. Did you ever see that movie?
Oh God, it's been a while, but yeah, I've seen it a couple times.
It's a classic. They hired this guy who's actually the real Santa Claus. And he's there and he's talking to the great character actress, Thelma Ritter. And this is in the 40s and late 40s. And he's working Macy's. And this boy wants to get some roller skates. And he says, oh, yeah, well, Santa's going to get you roller skates. And the mother's just shaking her head, saying, why did you tell him that Santa's going to get roller skates? You guys, I don't have it here. I can't buy these rollers. They're not stocking them. And the guy says to Thelma Ritter, Santa says to Thelma Ritter, hey, go to this store. That's where they have it. In fact, they're great skates. They're at a great price and they're on sale now. And she's stunned because he's giving her a reference to a competitor. Okay. But what happens is she says, this is amazing. This is amazing that Macy's is helping me putting the Christmas commercialism to the side to take care of their customers and refer them. And it goes wildfire. In fact, Mr. Macy himself gives, the boss of Santa a bonus because suddenly it's all over the papers that Macy's is, if they don't have it, they'll direct their customers to where they are. And it builds tremendous brand loyalty. And I think this whole texting thing has gotten so invasive, have gotten so bad that new realtors should be told not to do this.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I agree with that. I know you're never going to convince every coach, every broker out there that that's the way to go. But I
I
certainly
know.
am annoyed
Hey,
by it.
my job. Look at Mike. My job is not. I'm not trying to convince anybody here, but I'm offering an alternative way of thinking.
Yeah.
And you know what? When I think about some of these coaches out there, when I look at some of these infomercials and how you can be rich quick and how you can be a millionaire, it is all bullshit. They take these people who want to be successful in real estate and they make them just pound their head against a wall. There's no creative thinking there. It's like we talked about this last week in our podcast on Airbnb when people got stars in their eyes about being an Airbnb host. Meanwhile, all Airbnb is doing is selling these people on the dream of making money on Airbnb. Okay, and they're telling their neighbors to be an Airbnb. It's like telling somebody to have a Starbucks franchise, and then you wake up and you find that within a block there's 20 Starbucks.
Yeah. Well, it's like the a lot of the Israeli investors that I talk to, speaking of Israel, a lot of them call me up and say, "Well, I've been taking classes with this particular guru who is a successful real estate investor, and now they spend their time teaching other people how to do what they've done. So I paid X number of shekels to take their class, and this is how they say to do it." And I have to fix them. I have to say, "Look, you paid a lot of money to learn garbage." And so, you mentioned at the top of the podcast here, this is, books to read, podcasts to listen to. I think that we could do a whole nother episode on which ones not to listen to.
Yeah. I think I may have to amend my title because just getting two more texts and calls this morning about this property. I've kind of stumbled down a rabbit hole, but this rabbit hole is so interesting that let's keep on going, and we'll do a part two this weekend on books and videos to read. But we did throw one video out, and that's Miracle on 34th Street. I've got another video, and while I'm telling you about this one, you can think about your suggestions. This is a movie you can see on YouTube for free. So everybody write this down. It's called The Card. The Card, C-A-R-D. It stars a young Alec Guinness. It stars, believe it or not, Mike, a 20-year-old Petula Clark. For those of a certain age, Petula Clark, sang that great song "To Sir with Love," that movie with Sidney Poitier in the late 60s. Young Petula Clark. And it's all about this self-made man in the rigid class system of England. And it was made in the early 50s before Alec Guinness became a great star. But it was all about his entrepreneurial chops, how he recognized opportunity when nobody else could see it. So that's my suggestion of a movie to watch. What's yours? What jumps out?
I was thinking of books actually, but if you want to,
no, go to books.
Yeah,
go to books, and then I'll go to books after you.
So I got a list of four. I'm going to pick one here and talk about it. Talk about taking lemons and making lemonade and looking at things in a different way. This isn't just for real estate, but I would highly recommend the Freakonomics series of books.
Oh, I love Freakonomics, the podcast.
Oh, yeah. Well, and that's why I picked that one, because there's a podcast. There's also, I believe it's a Netflix special. So however you like to consume your content, you can read it, you can listen to it, you could watch it on TV. But the cool thing about what they do is they take a situation, kind of like you're saying with the cold calls and how turned off you are by it, and saying, hey, what's a different way we can look at this to really come up with a different answer, even though everybody thinks that the answer is A, it's actually B or C.
Yeah. What's one of your favorite chapters? Anything jump out at you?
Well, it's my favorite, but it also pains me when I hear about it. They actually do a whole segment on realtors, and they talk about.
Whoops.
Yeah, yeah. It's Mike. It is it rips us a new one essentially, and basically what they're saying is, look, your realtor. We're not saying realtors are bad, but they're big on motivation. What motivates
Oh
people to
yeah,
do something?
yeah.
And the problem with the reward system, the motivation system for realtors is that when I'm talking to you about selling your $300,000 house, and I say to you, hey, take 290. We have a good offer of 290 on the table. You should take it. It's only $10,000. You're going to wait, and what for 10 grand. Well, to you, that's 10 grand. To me, if I'm getting paid 3% of 10 grand, I'm only giving up $300
Yeah.
by making you take 10, not making you, but by encouraging you. Oh, this is a great offer. We're not going to get a better offer. So the reward system is a little bit skewed, and it sometimes can cause the realtors to have different motivations. And certainly in the eyes of the public, we're already at the bottom of the list when it comes to ethical ratings.
You're below used car salesman.
No, we're actually above used car salesmen, and we're one above lawyers. So
Oh wow,
that's not
wow.
saying much, though,
Well, Mike, but you guys keep texting and bombing. You're gonna
right?
reach the bottom.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, you make a great point because this is something I teach in my ethics and law classes. Is the public already thinks so very lowly of us that these things pile up, and there's a reason why the public doesn't think very much of. Well, God, this is your job. You call and text people to see if they want to sell their house. I get it. I mean, I can't disagree with you
It's
on
it's
that.
just one more. It's just one more indictment of
Yeah.
the industry. I mean it, and the fact is the like we said last week or two. I mean, what is it? 10% of the realtors make 90% of the sales, something like that.
That's my unscientific analysis, but from my experience at my brokerage and the agents that I coach, that's what I see.
Hey, let's stop here. We got to pay some bills. 30 seconds, and we'll be back. If you've been listening to this podcast, then you understand or should understand the pitfalls of investing in Cleveland real estate. Say you're looking for an investment property to rent, and these are the things that could happen and often do. You overpay for a house, and it's in the ghetto. Then you find that it's a money pit with endless surprise repairs. Your hapless property manager, who may be the brother-in-law of the realtor, gets a tenant who after 3 months stops paying the rent. Then the toilet explodes, and you have nobody to repair it because, guess what? The property manager is not answering the phone. Yep, that's the ugly side of the Cleveland real estate market. But we have a solution. Buy one of our properties. It's been inspected. It's been vetted. It's in a rock-solid part of town. It comes with a Gold Star tenant paying top dollar rent, and we manage it. Call us at 216-371-8160 if you're interested.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I want you to be thinking about the movie while I throw up my book, the Bible. I've got basically two. One is, of course, Moneyball, which I've seen the movie numerous times. I've read the book at least 3 times. And Moneyball it just speaks to me. It is, it's again, what I was saying about Century 21 advocating that they're not the realtor that is going to bomb you with texts. That's a moneyballism right there. You're going against the grain. You're going against conventional wisdom, and that was the birth of analytics. Moneyball is the Bible for analytics, to really look for value and opportunity whether other people can't see it. So, have you read the book?
I've not read the book. I've seen the movie.
The book is so much different than the movie. The movie's similar, but there's some key similarities. But basically, the book is just, I mean, Anyway, so movie for you, Mike?
So I've got a movie and a TV show in mind. Just for entertainment value and for the great scene. Even though I don't love Ben Affleck, there's a great scene in the movie Boiler Room. Have you seen
Oh,
that one, Mike?
yes, yes,
You
yes.
know the scene I'm talking about, right?
There's a couple, but go ahead.
Well, the one where he's addressing the new recruits to the boiler room, to the shop.
I'm gonna
And
have to
he,
see that scene
oh,
again.
it's a classic. I mean, it's filled with F-bombs and certainly probably a little bit too R-rated for our show, even though I'd say we're PG-13 here. But Boiler Room is a pretty darn good movie. It really it's entertaining, but there's also a lot of good business stuff in it where it just makes you think about things. And the speech, Ben Affleck's, again, I'm not bragging on Ben Affleck because I'm not a fan, but that scene, he dominates. It's just an amazing scene.
Well, and then of course, I'll counter that. I'll throw one back at you, which is Wolf on Wall Street,
Sure.
and Matthew McConaughey, iconic performance, which should have won him an Oscar for supporting actor. When he's going, and he's just giving him the inside peek at what working on Wall Street's about. The cons, the drinking, the drugs, the sex, on and on and on. The real deal. I had one more book to throw into the conversation, and that is just an all-time classic, The Millionaire Next Door.
It's sitting on my shelf here. It's next up in my queue.
All right. Have you read it?
No, it's next up.
Okay. I mean, it's just fascinating. The book was written by two guys who were basically statisticians. So there is a kind of a connection to Moneyball in a way. It came out, I think, 30 years ago, 35 years ago. Just a landmark book.
Yeah.
And they studied who are the millionaires, the average millionaire. And they were stunned at what they found. They found that the average millionaire was somebody who lived next door to you. They didn't own a big McMansion or walk around with gold chains or a Ferrari or BMW, or their lifestyle was comfortable, but it wasn't outlandish. And then to top it off, the kind of work they were in that made them the millions, the vast majority were self-employed. They weren't lawyers, they weren't doctors, but the vast majority were self-employed, and they would have like pest control business, or they had a couple of auto mechanic shops, or they were in retail, but the kind of retail they did was they sold hard to get parts. I know there's a big company in Cleveland, Waxman Industries, which was all based on sourcing out and stocking parts that were hard to get. So again, they are, the millionaire next door is always surfing in the beach where there are no people, and it's not sexy. These are not sexy jobs, sexy businesses. They're under the radar. They live under the radar. You'd never know that they're sitting on millions. And that's the first lesson I taught my kids when they came into business working with me 20 years ago, 25 years ago. I remember I had Brooke read The Millionaire Next Door. I think Lindsay may have read it. And I just told them, I said, the person you think that has money doesn't. And the person that you think doesn't have money does. And I saw that all the time in the contracting work, where, you had some guy who's basically living paycheck to paycheck. Yeah, they're maybe making $500,000 a year, but they're spending $600,000.
Yeah.
So that's my book, Millionaire Next Door. Read it on the plane to Israel.
Yeah, I definitely will. So I'm going to mention a TV show if I can. There's a new one we just started watching, and you may or may not be a fan of this guy, but the content is pretty remarkable so far. Say what you will about Jon Stewart, but he's got a show
I like
that's
Jon Stewart.
Yeah, a bright guy, and has some really interesting things to say. So whether you love him or hate him, the content is good, and the show is called The Problem with Jon Stewart?
I've seen that. Yeah.
Have you? Okay. It's
Yeah.
a little hard to find. It's on Apple TV. I don't know if you can find it anywhere else, but if you don't have Apple TV, it might be hard to find. But the very first episode he does, it's all about our veterans, and he goes on about sound bites. We love our veterans. We take and so I think the perception is, our veterans are honored people. We take care of them, but in reality, we don't, especially as it pertains to healthcare. And he's asking some very tough questions and bringing up some very uncomfortable issues. And if you're not sitting in your seat squirming a little bit as you watch that episode about veterans, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah, yeah. How they talk about how they love them, and then they underfund them.
Yeah. They're denying them health care. It's the burn pits was a big topic. The Iraqi war burn pits, and how there's jet fuel. They're burning them with jet fuel. This has known carcinogens, and then a year or 2, 3 years later, when they're coming down with different forms of cancer, the VA's telling, no, you're not covered. You were in Iraq three years ago.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, it is. So, what are you going to be talking about on your? Let's wrap this up and get you ready for your 11 o'clock webinar.
Again, I'm a big proponent of networking, relationship building, Mike. And getting away from the cold calling was always a goal of mine. I did it for a very short time in my business, but basically what we do is we structure it somewhat like a BNI meeting. Each person gets a 45 seconds to just give a little tidbit about their business. And we're getting to know each other little by little. Now there's other parts to the meeting as well, but we keep it pretty short. Just showing up for the meeting has value. It's the same concept in BNI. You see the same people every week, and you start to realize, oh, that's a reliable person. They're here every week. They're professional. I can count on them when I have a referral to give. So rather than just blindly saying, oh, I know someone in Seattle, now I can say, I know someone in Seattle that I've gotten to know over the last 6 months who shows up to meetings, and they know what they're talking about. And in fact, this is a little bit about their business. So it's really panning out. I'm loving it. And I encourage any business owner, if you're not in a mastermind group of some sort, I think you're missing a great opportunity to share ideas with like-minded people.
Do you share stories of how you sold this house or how you dealt with that client?
In this group, no, but that's something that I do on a weekly basis in different training classes that I do. So, I try to share as much knowledge as I can with other realtors, and it's a different platform where I would share those types of things. But absolutely, that's the kind of stuff where, we say, hey, I ran into this problem. How would you handle this? And usually someone in the mastermind group has an idea. Oh, well, this is what happened when that happened to me. This is what I did.
Right. Okay, I'm going to ask you one last question, get a little off topic, but I've met a bunch of your people over the years and other people where sometimes I think that they are in the wrong business. They think real estate is, like, I'm going to be a journalist, I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to be a lawyer, but they're really not good at it. What's your thoughts on? I mean, do you ever have those conversations with some of these people? I don't think this is the job for you.
I have those types of conversations. I don't usually say you're not cut out for this. I'll ask them questions. I'd rather they come up with that conclusion than me telling them it. So I try to lead them. I say, look, here are the challenges I see you facing. You're not doing this, this, and this. Why aren't you doing those things? And a lot of times it's just, I don't like doing it. And then I say, well, gosh, if you don't like doing it, what are you going to do?
Well, but see, that's where the cold calling can be a trap. That's where some of these gurus I look as just another version of snake oil salesmen. They're telling people who really aren't cut out to do this kind of deal, bargaining, selling, stuff like that, who really are probably better off working as an auto mechanic, or maybe learning how to be an HVAC guy or woman, heating and cooling, all the non-sexy, more purple collar jobs, which they would fit in more. But instead, they are, they feel guilty because maybe I'm not working harder. Okay, fine. I'll make 100 cold calls. And all they're doing is digging the hole deeper. Final thoughts on that?
Well, for sure, Mike. I think that a lot of people who are self-employed should be. Not everyone who's a good plumber can run a good plumbing business. And it goes for every single business out there, every single trade out there. So just because you're good at your job doesn't mean you'd be good at owning that type of business.
Okay. All right. Okay, good. All right. Well, okay, Professor, you get ready for your webinar. Hopefully, we're going to sneak one more podcast in before you head to Israel. And maybe you can do a podcast from Tel Aviv, which should be fun.
It would be interesting. I'll let you know what the calendar's looking like.
All right. Okay, Mike, go
Take
to
care.
work.
Yep.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Cleveland Real Estate Investor Podcast with Mike Reilly. Please add our show or follow us on Spotify, Overcast, Apple Podcast, or Spotify. Leave a like or comment on the video. All engagement is appreciated. Subscribe to us on YouTube as well for video content coming soon. For any Cleveland listeners or Cleveland Browns fans, you can check out our other podcast, Cleveland Browns Anonymous, for our weekly group therapy session. This is also on all the same platforms as the Cleveland Real Estate Investor.